Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news out of the Middle East, Ukraine, and also Asia as well. But by far the region that is getting the most out of control extremely quickly is the Middle East, and right now it appears the Middle East is racing toward a major scale regional conflict that they've not seen in a little while. So right now we're seeing the US continue their heavy bombing campaign in Yemen against the Yemeni rebels, and right now the Yemeni rebels have now officially declared war against the United States and vowed to take us down. So that situation is getting out of hand. And also in Israel, we're seeing the ceasefire situation between the Iran-backed rebels and also Israel has also broken down, and Israel's once again resumed bombing these forces across many different regions in the Middle East. We've also seen as well that Iran has aggressed on the United States by chasing off one of our US recon drones as it was conducting surveillance on an Iran nuclear site right off their coast, and that situation is also a pretty big aggression. And we also have news out of Ukraine that allegedly the Ukrainians have started a brand new offensive near Belgorod, and the city of Belgorod has been drone attacked quite massively by the Ukrainians, and we have that on video. We also have news as well of more Russian failures, and also news out of China that Xi Jinping is not happy whatsoever about the Panama Canal situation and the way it went overall. So jumping into our first post of the day, this one goes to Global Military Info. And jumping into one of our largest stories of the day, we can see in this post right here that the Iranian-backed Yemeni group told Reuters that they are officially at war with the United States and have no intention of scaling back their military actions in the Red Sea, and they stated they are fully expecting escalation and are preparing for an intensified conflict. And quite honestly, this is one of the worst options they could have taken, because the entire objective behind the US strikes in Yemen are to cause this group to back down and also send a message to Iran that the United States is not playing around with the current situation and that we're not going to accept any more actions toward our shipping vessels in the Red Sea by this group. But it looks like this group has decided to go to war with the United States instead, and they've decided to basically become martyrs if they can't get their way in their cause. So this is escalating quite a bit, and it looks like they are not going to be backing down anytime soon, and the US will probably have to maintain their heavy bombing campaign over several weeks, if not months, to actually take this group out, and also they may even have to start a ground operation to take them out even further. So this situation has gotten much worse since yesterday, and we are hearing that today. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Guy Elster, and we can see right here in this post that one of the Iran-backed group spokespeople has been taken out by Israeli airstrikes, and Abu Hamza, who was the individual responsible for putting out the propaganda for these groups, has now been eliminated by Israel and is no longer a threat. So that individual has been taken out, and that is a pretty high-profile assassination by the Israeli forces. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Global Military Info once again. And this is also another massive piece of news. Today we've heard that officially the ceasefire between Israel and the Iranian proxy groups has officially collapsed, as the IDF launched widespread strikes across the territory, employing both IAF assets and also artillery units, and the renewed military operation was triggered after one of the proxy groups rejected a US-backed proposal aimed at extending the ceasefire agreement, and in a statement, the IDF confirmed that operations will persist for as long as necessary, with a clear intention to escalate beyond air operations if required. And the development follows remarks by the Israeli defense minister, who declared that if the proxy group does not release all the hostages, then the gates of hell will open and the other individuals of this proxy group will meet the IDF forces that they've never known before. And that last line right there is actually very true, because the IDF has launched massive airstrikes across many different territories, striking these Iranian proxy groups, and it looks like they mean business this time. And of course, they have gotten the blessing of the United States behind this operation, and it looks like the ceasefire is officially over with between these groups in Israel, and that situation is also popping off, just like the situation in Yemen between the United States and also another proxy group. But jumping into our next post here, this one is going to go to Fintux Network. And before we jump into this post, I just want to remind everybody that one of the reasons the US is striking the Yemeni rebel group down in Yemen is to send a message to Iran to back down or else. And right now, we're getting word from Fintux that the Iraqi paper Al-Madah reports that the US has tipped off Iraqi leaders on a potential strike in Iran due to Tehran's unwillingness to negotiate. And Al-Madah reports that Iran-aligned factions in Iraq have gathered in a operations room to discuss the overthrow of the Syrian transitional government, and have also been directed by Iran to prepare to target American interests inside of Iraq. So very interesting, and it appears once again that the US is warning the Iraqi leaders, basically to warn Tehran that they will be attacked soon if they do not back down off of their position of creating a nuclear weapon and also aggressing toward Israel and the United States. So it looks like this is another indirect warning by the US officials to let Iran know that it's about to go down if they don't back down. So So that is another situation happening right here, and we can see that apparently strikes on Iran are maybe closer than expected, according to this post right here. But jumping into our next post, this one goes to Apex News. And apparently Iran is taking this all very seriously, because we got word today that Iran's armed forces remain on high alert, prepared for a full-scale defense and a severe counterattack against enemy interest in the Middle East, according to one of the Iranian newspapers. So once again, they are ready for something, at least they claim they're ready, but I don't think they'll ever be ready for what the United States is going to bring to them if they don't back down, because once again, this is a very, very large military the United States has, and is much larger and much more powerful than Iran's military, so they wouldn't stand much of a chance between us and them. They're acting tough, but they know the situation would not go very well for them if it came down to reality, so of course, tough words from a very weak government. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Aleph. And all of this news about a potential strike on Iran by U.S. forces has not deterred Iran too much, because we just got word as well that the Iranian regime-linked Noor News claims that Iranian fighter jets and reconnaissance drones forced a U.S. Air Force drone to leave Iranian airspace. And right here you can see on flight radar, there was the U.S. recon drone right there in the middle. It was actually circling around in the sea out here. It was actually not over Iran, and it was circling around doing reconnaissance on a nuclear site inside of Iran on their coast. So the Iranians claim they ran it off using an F-14 Tomcat, but we're really not sure as to the exact details of the situation, but it appears to be that it's largely corroborated that something did happen between that drone and also the Iranians that was an aggression by the Iranian side. So once again, big news on that front, and more proof that Iran is not backing down even amidst the fears of a strike on their territory. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to FightX Network once again. And in addition to preparing for war, we also got word that Iran is now introducing a bill to triple their defense spending immediately, according to the Tehran Times. So it looks like not only are they preparing for a military defense of their territory, but they're also tripling their defense spending as well as we speak, and it looks like Iran is indeed gearing up for a war. And honestly, at this point, it's looking more likely than not that the U.S. might be going to a war with Iran very, very soon, and of course, that could lead to a real can of worms being opened in the Middle East, and it's looking pretty likely at the moment. But that is the news coming out of Iran. But jumping into our next post, this one goes to Ariel Oseran. And we also got more word about the Iranian proxy forces, and we just heard from Ariel that urgent security consultations are taking place at the top security and political levels in Israel due to a recent unusual event that may indicate one of the Iranian proxy groups may attempt to prepare for a ground invasion into Israel, and apparently Israel approved the publication of this information to the public to let them know about this event taking place. So once again, it sounds like Iran may mobilize their proxy forces to attack Israel and also America in the event that once again an attack takes place on Iran, and we're hearing that Israel is preparing for that possibility, and they have gotten intel that that is indeed probably the case. So big news on that front as well. But we are now jumping away from this news article and onto our next one, which goes to US CENTCOM. And in this post from CENTCOM, we do have more footage showing the strikes against the Yemeni-backed rebels, and we're seeing that right here on the video. So let's take a look and see the might of the US Navy and also the Air Force going up against these rebel forces. So let's take a look. Oh, and it looks like we have a nighttime video this time, so let's take a look at this one. And as we can see right here, some nighttime launches of these fighter jets from the carrier, and there they are taking off at night, which is of course probably the best time to attack because it's under the cover of darkness. And there they go. Look at that. Very impressive at night, by the way, and look at that full afterburn. That is very, very impressive. Very cool to see, by the way. And you can see several of them taking off. So once again, just another video showing you the carrier launches, but once again, a massive amount of ordnance being sent into Yemen as we speak. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Nexta. And it's the point in the video where we switch gears away from our Middle East news. And right now, that is a ton of news right now. That is enough for just one video alone, just in the Middle East news. But we also have news coming out of Ukraine as well. And in this post from Nexta, we get word that the Ukrainian armed forces have allegedly launched an offensive in the Belgorod direction, and yesterday Ukrainian drones attacked Belgorod, and Russian media and Z military correspondents report indicate that by nightfall, Ukrainian forces had moved equipment and personnel to the border area near the junction of the Belgorod and Kursk regions, and according to the reports, there's been no border breach so far, but yesterday evening, Ukrainian drones attacked Belgorod, and once again, there were some victims of this attack in the area of Belgrade. So it appears to be a new offensive being launched in Belgrade. We don't have much information about it right now, but we are hearing this is allegedly the case. So we'll be keeping an eye on this, but once again, they just pulled out of Kursk, at least allegedly we've heard they pulled out of Kursk, and now it appears to be maybe a new offensive near Belgrade. So it could be another double whammy against the Russians by the Ukrainian forces, but that is what we're hearing right now. But jumping into our next post, this one goes to Nexta. So I want you all to remember that today a phone call was scheduled to take place between Vladimir Putin and the United States president, but instead of jumping right on the call at the scheduled time, Putin showed up and started speaking to a room full of Russian oligarchs instead, and the guy who was actually interviewing him here at this room of oligarchs had asked Putin, he said, according to Peskov's statements, who's of course the Kremlin spokesperson, he said your phone call with the US president was supposed to take place before 6 p.m., so what's happening with that? And Putin simply responded, don't listen to him, it's his job, and he laughed it off like it was no big deal. So it appears to be that Putin is once again playing games with the United States when it comes to these talks, and now he's doing this public insult by joking around like he doesn't have to be at the phone call at the time he's scheduled, he'll show up whenever he wants, because he feels like he has control of the situation. So this is quite an interesting optic right here, and really quite a bad optic when it comes to showing these supposedly, allegedly, good faith negotiations between the US and Russia. But nonetheless, the phone call did end up taking place, and in our next post here, this one goes to BNO News Live, and shortly after Putin got done speaking to the oligarchs at his leisure, he did jump on the phone with the US president, and they were talking for more than 1.5 hours, and the call is still ongoing. And at the point of this video being published, I would imagine the phone call is well over by that point, and we'll have some details tonight on stream about what was discussed if the details are released right after the phone call ends. So we don't know right now, but right now we do know the phone call did take place, and we're not sure what was said on that call at the moment. But nonetheless, jumping into our next post here, this one goes to the Ukrainian Review, and we also got word from Ukraine spokespeople as well that Ukraine is ready to continue resisting if the Kremlin does not accept the proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. And at the same time, the foreign minister calls for the possible ceasefire a big step forward towards establishing peace. So the Ukrainians are not putting much stock into these talks, and really I'm not either. I don't think the ceasefire is really going to happen, but it's always possible. But right now the Ukrainians are saying they're ready to keep fighting if it's necessary to defend their territory. So they're basically not backing down under any circumstance. But jumping into our next post, this one goes to War Monitor. And Europe is still preparing for war, and as we can hear in this post, Macron, who's the president of France, has announced that Rafale fighter jets armed with nuclear warheads will be deployed in an air base near the German border. So they are not currently there yet, but according to Macron, they will apparently be going there at some point in the near future and be deployed to Germany to once again give Europe a nuclear umbrella to protect their territories. So that is big news on that front, and once again, France is stepping up to be the de facto leader of the new European defense sphere. So we're seeing that right there in that post. But jumping into our next one, we also have one from Military News Ukraine. And I got a hell of a video for you to see right here. We saw the news broke that a new mobile anti-aircraft complex of the armed forces of Russia has been introduced on the battlefield, and this is a piece of equipment right here which could change the entire course of the war. This might change the situation where the Russians are no longer dependent on donkeys, and instead they finally have the right military equipment for the job. So let's take a look at the video and see the brand new piece of tech that the Russians are deploying on the battlefield. And as you can see right here, this is the brand new piece of high-tech equipment the Russians have given their soldiers. It is a one-wheel unicycle thing, and of course, it's something like a college student would use to commute to class if they were trying to be hip. So they're driving it with a bazooka or an RPG or something on top of this one-wheel thing. So very fascinating to see, and of course, that is not a proper military piece of equipment. That is just something they're trying to do to make it feel like they've got something, but that's really nothing, honestly. They probably got that off of some type of like Temu or something. But anyways, we are now jumping off of this post and onto our next one, which goes to Clash Report. And a lot of people constantly ask us all the time, where are the videos of the Ukrainian F-16 flying at this low altitude near the front lines? And today we have a video of exactly that. We have a video of a Ukrainian F-16 flying very low over Sumy, right near the front lines, and it looks like it is conducting a mission, an offensive mission, in this video. So let's take a look at what we have. But as you can see right here, there is the F-16 flying very low over Sumy, and there it is pulling off a maneuver. It looks like it's heading back toward Ukrainian territory after pulling off some type of mission near the front lines. So there's a video showing an F-16 in action, which is kind of rare these days, but you can see there it is right here over Sumy. But with that, we are now jumping into our next post here, and this one goes to Anton Geraschenko. And we have even more evidence that Europe is preparing for war, and we've heard today from Anton that Lithuania, Poland, Latvia, and Estonia have announced their withdrawal from the Ottawa Convention on Anti-Personnel Mines. And specifically in the letter withdrawing from this convention right here, they stated that the reason for it is because they feel like Russia is going to aggress on their territory and they feel that war is imminent. So that is why they've done this right here. And once again, Europe is taking steps to prepare for war. Once again, Poland started training their young men. This situation's happening, and also France is stepping up, trying to take over the European sphere of influence when it comes to defense spending and also defense controls. So we are seeing that on pretty much every front. So with that, we are now jumping into our last post of the day, which goes to the Ukrainian review. And this last piece of news right here is actually out of China, and we do have word that apparently Xi Jinping is very angered by a Hong Kong company's plan to sell the Panama Canal ports to a US-led group, and Xi Jinping's leadership plan to use the ports as a bargaining chip in US talks. And this is quite funny right here, because I thought that the company that owned the Panama Canal ports was apparently independent of China, but maybe that's not the case, at least according to this report, and it sounds like China had some type of control over the situation in some way or another. Not very clear exactly how, but it sounds like they had some type of indirect control over something when it comes to that Panama Canal situation. But Xi is reportedly very angry about the whole thing and not happy whatsoever, and it looks like the company might have gotten ahead of itself a little bit and not asked the CCP whether or not that was approved or not. So not good for the company, but very good for the United States when it comes to getting that Chinese company out of the situation. But with that, folks, that is actually our last piece of news of the day. So I hope you've enjoyed today's short war video, and once again, a ton of news to cover, and I've only covered a little bit of it here in this video because there's so much more to cover. I couldn't cover it within this short amount of time. So be sure to tune in tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern for our next Nightly War News stream. And once again, before you go, smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well for more real-time, up-to-date information from around the world that we post every single day here on our YouTube channel. And also, by the way, if you watched the video to this point, go down to the comments below and put FAFO to let me know you watched to this point, and we appreciate all the kind words in the comments as well. And once again, thank you all very much for watching. And also, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership and support the channel in a very big way that way, which of course is a big help and helps the channel keep on running. And once again, a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters for making the channel possible as well, and we appreciate y'all very much. But with that, folks, be sure to join us tonight once again at 10 p.m. Eastern for the Nightly War News stream, and with that, bye-bye for now.